Hello, good morning. Welcome to Positive Vibes, making positivity and gratitude louder in a podcast world. I'm your host, Shane Nikolic, and my video is not working this morning. I'm supposed to be on a Zoom call with my friend Jess Greene, and okay, and here she is. Good morning, Jess. Good morning, Jess.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
Good. I can't hear you. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Great. I can't see you. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you just fine.
Cool.
Um, Let me see here. I'm just trying to. I'm having not really tech. Well, my video is not working, my camera, but other than that, I'm. It's not really technical difficulties. It's just operator error this morning. Okay, just a moment here. Let's see. Just trying to make sure this is all going. Okay, there we go. And so, yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Very, very good to have you on my show this morning.
Thanks for having me, Shane. I
Yeah,
hope you're
yeah,
having a better day today.
yeah, definitely. Last night I was just making a post about it. Didn't finish it yet, but um, last night I was having a, how did I put that? I had a momentary meltdown. Yeah, a momentary meltdown caused by my magic magnifying mind, and my mind just focused on everything all at once, and of course you can't take everything all at once, and so it's like got all stressed out there for a moment, but I refocused. With everyone's help, I was able to refocus and just focusing on the solution,
Good.
solving one issue at a time. So yeah,
Good. That's all we can do.
yeah, just run the race we're in. We can't worry about running anywhere else at the moment.
Yes.
Exactly. Um, but yeah, I was just wanting to talk to you and find out about your running. I as I remember, I met the first time I ever met you was at the start line of the Run Super 50 miler
Yep.
last year, and yeah, that race,
Standing
that was definitely a race.
standing out in the rain waiting for a bus and
Yeah, yeah, good times, huh?
nothing like starting with your gear all wet and
Yeah. Um, and I was just I was wanting to ask you and let everyone know when did you start running and take on ultra running?
So I have not been running very long. I started running midway through 2018. I was training for the R2R. Have you done that, Shane?
Yeah, the Rainier to Ruston.
Yeah, Rainier to Ruston.
Yeah.
I got put on a team. I wasn't really running. I was in the process of losing 100 pounds from where I am now. So it's quite a bit heavier. And I just started training for that because I wanted to be on the team and I didn't want to let my team down. And after that race, I just kind of felt like I had found this love for running. And I started just training for things on my own. I did a half marathon. I trained for a marathon. Um, actually did a couple marathons in 2019. And then it was August 2019 when I did my first ultra distance with Sam.
Right on, right on. Yeah, Sam's definitely the guy to go to for ultra
Yes.
running. Yeah. Um, and so like this the long race, the big one that you did with Sam here
Yeah.
recently, the Moab 240,
Yes.
240.3 miles.
Yes.
That is an extreme distance. How did you how did you I don't want to say get roped into, but how did you come to be racing in that one
I
or
think in a
running
way,
rather?
it might have kind of been my idea in a way. Actually, it was Sam's brother-in-law that sent us a link to Orca's 200. I don't know if you've heard of that race. It was gonna 2020 was gonna be the first year that they had Orca's 200. And he sent us a link just kind of joking, like, oh, you two would probably love this because we had done a 100-miler together then. And we looked at it at first as a joke. Like, we're kind of like, oh, haha, wouldn't it be funny? But next thing you know, we actually did sign up for it, which is kind of the way with our running team, right? Like, it's kind of a game of chicken of what neither of us will back out of a challenge, I guess. So we spent all winter of 2020 training for that, getting ready for that. And then it ended up getting canceled just 3 weeks before the event. So that was a huge bummer. And so after that, though, we maintained our training, the level of training that we had reached for Orcas. And we signed up for Bigfoot 200, that got canceled. We tried to get into Tahoe 200, but that was canceled before we even got on the list. And then we hopped over to the Moab waitlist, and we got off the waitlist about 3 or 4 weeks before the race. So it was kind of just felt like fate that we found ourselves at that start line.
Oh, right on. That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely a big step, going from, running. I mean, it's running shorter, much shorter ultra marathons.
Yeah.
Going from like 50-miler to 200, and 240. It's like whoa.
Yeah, that was, I mean, technically that was my third race, like my third ultra marathon ever. I had done the 50-miler with you. I did the Capitol Peaks Mega Fat Ass, that's what it's called,
Yeah.
run last January, which it was like a blizzard at the top and you're trudging through snow. So it was kind of a unique race. For us, it was kind of a training run too, because we had planned the next day, we got up and ran a 50K again. So, with ultra running training, a lot of times you do back-to-back long runs. So for us, that was like the first of a whole weekend of training. And then after that, the only other race I've done is Moab 240.
Jeez, that's quite the race to have on your resume, on your running resume. Okay, so yeah, to back up a little bit, um, when you started running, from what you were saying, you were running for health and fitness
Yeah.
to help lose that weight, and I'm just curious. Person to person, experiences differ and reasons differ, but
Yeah.
what's and I know I see all your posts on social media. You're with the Evolve Fitness group
Yeah.
every morning or just about every morning, and working out with them, and then you're running many miles on top of that. Going on 20-mile runs every day or every other day or
No,
whatever.
not every day. Not
Yeah,
every
yeah,
day.
yeah. Not every day, but quite often seems like. Um,
I think, well,
so
for one, I think social media kind of distorts, we all have to be careful looking at each other's training because,
yeah,
like for you, I see you posting every day and I'm like, oh my gosh, Shane's out there every single day. It's so easy when you see these pictures to feel like your training's coming up short, or we all just see these little glimpses of what everybody else is doing.
yeah,
And I do think people kind of have a perception. I don't know how to. I will say I work very hard but I do think people have a perception that I'm going out and doing like, it's always these really big long runs or
Yeah.
running really fast or working super hard, when I would say the bulk of my training is just super easy, laid back runs for
Yeah.
enjoyment. No watch, you loosely know the distance because, as you know, like if you run in your area for a while, you just start to know all the distances.
Yeah.
But the bulk of my training is very easy and laid back. And I think that's how I'm able to do kind of a high volume. It's little bits that are high intensity, but most of it is very relaxed pace. Yeah.
Right on. Right on. Yeah. I was just exaggerating, saying you were running 20 miles
Oh, I
every
know. No,
day,
I know.
but
No, but I
yeah.
even when I look at my own social media, I'm like, whoa, people could totally think that because those are the runs where I post pictures mostly. I don't.
Yeah.
If it's just a totally boring, not boring. Every run is special in a way, but the daily loop around the neighborhood, usually I won't post as much about, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I myself try to be mindful of that, to not, uh, yeah, just to try to more authentically share with people what training for an ultra marathon looks like. Because I think a lot of people are interested in it, or at least I know for me, when I was interested in it, I just had no idea how you go about training for something like that. So I think people are interested, they just don't know how to jump in.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. Yeah. Actually, what you were saying, you were saying something about, you know, the most of your runs are like easy runs, shorter,
Yes,
easier runs,
yes.
and it's like, actually, I found for myself, if you look at I'm out there every day. I'm on this never-ending run streak. But if you look
Mm-hmm.
at my distances, you know, my a lot of my distances are shorter. Like a mile and a half or 3 miles or
Yeah,
something. And
yeah,
what I found for myself is, since I backed off and I'm just, maybe speed walking a mile and a half, or
right,
running a mile or 2 miles, you know,
right.
most of the time, then when those big runs do come up, I'm able to stretch it out longer, to where my pace is faster, because I'm not so worn out from doing these long
Yeah,
runs all the time.
yeah. And from the ultra stuff, it's all about, and this was kind of for me when I made that jump from marathon training to ultra marathon training. I feel really lucky that I had met Sam and that he kind of guided me through it, because you do have to kind of reset your brain and the way you look at running, the way you look at training. And the first thing he kept saying to me was, slow down, slow down. And it's weird because you've been training and you've gotten faster. And for marathons, you're always tracking your paces and paying attention to all of that. Um, Whereas ultra running, I feel like, is so much more about tuning into your own body, listening to your body, taking it easy, learning running mechanics, learning how to run properly and safely. If you're going to do it that much and do it for that far, for that long of a distance, you need to have good form and good mechanics. And it's about finding a super easy, gentle running pace that you can run all day and all night for 4 days. You don't go out and run hard. You would never finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I was thinking about that the other day. You were actually, I'm still pondering the idea, but you had posted something about, no one's you had just something to the effect of, you had registered for this next, Moab 240 solo, and it's like, man, I don't I don't know if I could do that, running 4 days solo, but
Yeah, I don't know if I can do it either. I really don't. Even having finished it, my hands, I'm a nervous person. You can probably tell I'm nervous right now, but I'm a very nervous, anxious person. And when I signed up for that race to do it alone, my hands were just shaking as I hit sign up.
yeah,
And that's how a lot of running has been for me, is just confronting fears, facing fears. and just trying to lean into that and sitting with it, and not being held back from it. But there's a lot of fear of doing that alone, even having completed it once.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of, I would definitely be anxious and have fear going into that alone.
Yeah.
And yeah, you had posted something about having registered for that, doing it solo, and I'm like, in my mind, first thing in my mind was, holy crap, I cannot picture running 240 miles alone. I
Right.
mean, granted, there's going to be other people out there running, but it's like, you know, you're essentially your own running team. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's funny. I myself am kind of sitting with it and thinking through it too, having signed up again. And the thing I keep telling myself, or the thing that I've experienced running with as a team a lot, is that you really are always alone, even when you have a teammate with you, if that makes sense. Because running is such a personal experience, and how your
yeah,
body feels and where your mind is at, even if you're next to somebody. This is a really interesting experience with Sam. We will go on the same run and both come out of it feeling completely different. Like, some runs will finish, I'll be like, oh, that was a great run, I felt great. I'm like, oh, that I was suffering that entire time. I've had a rough day. My body's not there today, or my mind isn't there. So, and even during the race, we had different highs, different lows, different experiences, even being right next to each other, doing it together. Because again, running is just such a personal experience, and it's so much about where your mind is at,
yeah,
and what you're thinking and how you're processing it, that everybody that does it in a way does it alone, or at least that's what I'm trying to tell myself. But the reality is, when you're out there in the middle of the night on a mountain, we were lost. We got lost a few times during that race. That is a different experience alone versus having someone there with you, for sure. So you can have pacers. So I hope, I have some friends that have offered. I hope they're able to make it, and some family. So hopefully, at least through the nights, have some pacers there. I think that'd make a big difference.
yeah. Definitely, definitely having pacers and just having some support there, just
Yes.
people
Yeah, yeah, because when we did Moab, the only person we could get to show up for us, I think a lot of people thought we were crazy doing it, was my mom. And she showed up at mile 100. So we had already gone, pretty far when we ran into her. And it was incredible what a difference it made to have somebody at the aid station waiting for you, just knowing that someone was out there, because we didn't have any internet connection. We had no contact. You kind of just sunk into this different world. It feels like we were living a little separate lifetime out there. And when my mom showed up, it just changed everything, to have someone waiting at the aid stations that you recognized and was there to help and take care of you. And um, she was actually supposed to be at mile 120. That was the original plan. That was where she was going to meet us. And we were going a little slower than we thought. It was so hot those first 2 days. It was a lot hotter than it's ever been. We had run out of water. We were like battling dehydration, moving slower than we thought we would be moving. It's hard to run in 100-degree heat when you're in a canyon. So anyway, that being said, when we came into mile 100, I wasn't sure if my mom would have figured that out and come to that aid station, or if she would have stayed at 120. And when I heard her voice, it was the biggest boost to me mentally, of just, my mom is here. I don't know if you've experienced that in races, but the people being out there makes a huge, huge difference.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely um, as of yet, I haven't had family members out there, but yeah, just to see people, see friends, and what even friends that are in the race, but just
Mm-hmm.
having not seen them in the race on the course, and then
Yeah.
running into them at the aid station, it's like, hey, what's up? Actually, yeah, friends. I remember when I ran the Rainier Terrestre Ultra. Um, and there was a few friends from that were working at Fleet Feet Bonnie Lake at the time,
Okay.
and they were there at the aid station in Ording, and
Okay.
yeah, just, to give support. That's I remember exactly. That's where Kendra Anderson told me, Shane, don't push too hard. Listen to your body, and
Yes.
that's why I ended up stopping and calling it quits at 43 and a half miles.
Okay. Oh, dang, you're close. But
Yeah,
yeah, you
it
have
was.
to
I
listen to
was
your
come
body.
to find out, I was right around the corner from the next aid station there in Fife.
Uh,
Which, if I'd made it there, I could have sat for a couple minutes and got back up and pushed to the end
right?
because we were speed walking at that point anyway.
Okay.
And actually, um, that brings to mind something I was going to ask you about the Moab 240.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I know in my heart that for 4 full days, you're not going to be running the whole time. And
Right.
I'm wondering, was there, a good chunk of that? How much of it was, walking, slowing down?
Right. Yeah. And that's the other perception about ultra running that people have is like that you go out, that it's like a marathon where you go out, you start, you run till you don't run anymore, till you're at the finish line, and then you're done. For most people, I mean, obviously there's some pros that do run. And I don't even know Moab 240. I don't even think the winners are running at all. I can't speak to that. Obviously, I'm not in that category, but um, it the ultra distances like 100 and 200, I feel like for most runners is, especially because ultras do tend to also be in mountains where you have different terrain, you have climbs, you have technical trail, you're not just running down a sidewalk. For most runners, there's some walking or hiking or power, whatever people call it, mixed in. And the thing I actually like about those distances too is it's always about figuring out what is the most efficient way to move. Sometimes that's running, sometimes that's walking, sometimes it's hiking. Um, there could be a moment where that's crawling. I mean, it's just about getting your body to the finish line. And so, yes, for us, for Moab, we ourselves have kind of tried to put an estimate on it. We ran a very strong second half of the race. The first half we ran less than we thought. And again, that was mostly due to the heat. The heat was something that we weren't really able to train for because, being from Washington, we don't get that dry heat out here. Most of the time we're running on a trail, we're in shade, in tree cover, things like that. So we went in pretty untrained for the heat. It ended up being hotter than it had ever been. The aid stations are, those first few aid stations are 25 miles apart. And so when you add in technical trail and climbing, that's a lot of hours between aid stations. And so what we would do is we would run on the first couple days until we ran out of water. Once we ran out of water, it no longer felt safe to be running at 100 degrees or 90, or, it was just, I'm not sure exactly what the temperature was. It was kind of fluctuating in the canyon, but it was very hot. Once we were out of water, we would make a decision then to walk or power hike to the next aid station until we had water again. So we ended up having more walking in the first 2 days than we originally thought we would. But we also ended up running a lot more in the second half than we thought we would. We had some sections at the end where we just straight up ran like 20 miles twice. There's a kind of a flat road section that's 13 miles and then an aid station 13 more. Most of that was running. One of the last sections is sort of a downhill 20 some mile run to Porcupine Rim. We ran that entire thing. So we were kind of surprised at where we were running and where we were walking, but the weather kind of dictated that. I would say we ran more than half. I don't know exactly how many miles though. And there was definitely some climbing. Usually with ultra marathons, very few people run the uphill, run up a mountain. Just the energy that it would take to run up it would use all the calories that you had. You're kind of operating in a calorie deficit for most of the race. So it's all about just keeping your body moving as efficiently as possible, keeping the fuel coming in, staying out of GI distress, staying out of mental distress, and just mixing up that run, walk, hike as the terrain and weather dictate. And it is interesting to see too, sometimes running feels better, sometimes walking feels better. So you try to just keep both movements available and working, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like on the that race that I met you at was the super 50 miler,
Yeah.
run
Yeah.
super 50 miler. That one there, I, that I didn't complete that one because I had, I had, run too fast or run too far at a time,
Yeah.
and ended up walking a lot. Uh, well, yeah, that was my problem. Started out too fast. Ended up walking a lot because my
Yeah.
legs were hurting, and I ended up getting to the cutoff point like just a minute too late, and they're like, "Oh,
Oh,
sorry, can't go any further," you
no.
know. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I know what you're saying about the you have to gauge, your running and your walking distances, and
Yeah.
okay, I better slow back on the running, because it's starting to hurt a bit, and you
Yeah,
gotta.
you don't want to drive yourself. Our goal with Moab was to finish, but to finish running, that was something important to us. We had read a lot of race reports, watched a ton of videos people had made, and it seemed like a lot of people would kind of run themselves into the ground to where they couldn't run anymore. And then they had to walk all the way to the finish line, which just, again, that's totally fine. That's one way to do it. It just makes that second half of the race take a long time. And I think mentally losing the ability to run makes it stressful.
Yeah.
And so we hoped that we would retain our ability to run and walk all the way through the race. And we did. And we actually were running, quote unquote, air quote, fast at the end. My mom jumped in to pace us because she was there watching, and she couldn't even keep up with us. We just had this like excitement burst. These were probably like 8-minute miles. This wasn't like super truly fast, but to be running a real run at that mileage, we were super happy with how it turned out.
It's I think it's totally apropos that you said you were super happy. I was because what was going through my mind at that moment was running at the end of a 240.3-mile race. It takes like super people, you know.
I don't know. I don't. I think everyone there. It's funny. I felt that way about everyone there.
Yeah.
I would look around and be like, these are the most fascinating, interesting, living life to the fullest people I've ever met. But then you look at yourself and you're like, but I'm just a regular person. What am I doing here? We don't see ourselves the way others do. But
Well,
I really believe, I think we're all capable of so much more than we know. That's been one of the lessons to me that I've learned through running. And I really think anyone who set their mind to that distance is 100% mental, if that makes sense. You're going to outrun or walk your training. You're going to outrun or walk what's comfortable, what you know. For every single person in that race, you will reach a point where it's just pure mental grit and the decision to keep going. And make your body keep moving to the finish line. And so I think anyone who's mentally strong and set that as a goal could absolutely finish it. It's more mental than physical, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. That's why I've kept. That's how the only reason I've kept pushing myself, and keep going, longer distances.
Yeah.
Started out. I was, my first race was the Sound and Arrows 12K. I'm like, okay, I want to get into running. I'll do this 12K, and see how that goes. And my first day out training for it, my first time ever out running, ran 6 miles nonstop, and I'm like, oh, well, wait, 12K, what's that? 7.5 miles? Okay, yeah, I can do that. And it's
Totally.
like, finished that one, got to the end. It's like, can we do it again? But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no, that's
like,
how I feel with Moab. I want the perspective that I gained at like mile 200. I want to have that perspective on life again, if that makes sense.
yeah,
It's funny, I have a video clip of us standing there watching a sunset and we're both like crying. We're sleep deprived. This is day 4. And I'm like, oh, for us, that was the most beautiful sunset in the world. And to see the video, you see it and you're like, okay, yeah, that's an okay sunset. It happens every day. But it's like you had to be standing there having come 200 miles
yeah,
to see that sunset and experience it. It's like you can't put it into words how you started to see life and yourself and your relationships and the people around you, the experiences that shaped you. The lens that you get at that distance had so much clarity that I just want to experience that again. And it kind of fades away once you're done with the race. So that's why when it came back up, I was like, okay, I got to go back out and do that again.
yeah. Well, you had said something yesterday or the day before about registering for it solo, and first thought in my mind was, because I've been following you and Sam's training and read up on your experiences at the Moab 240, and it's like, you had said that about signed up for it solo, and I'm like, immediately I was like, whoa, maybe I better get training and so I can run with her.
Yeah, you are welcome to, Shane. I would love to have you come out and pace
But
any part of
well,
that.
but I was just looking here on my phone, looked at the registration, and it's like if I can, if I don't know about coming up with that for the registration, but if I could get the registration covered, I'd be down because it's definitely sounds like quite an adventure.
Yeah, I think people are craving that because that race actually sold out in 1 hour. There were 250 spots, and within an hour, I think it was just over an hour, it sold out. And it's funny that you have this many people that want to go 240 miles. You
Yeah.
think you wouldn't be able to collect enough runners to do it, and
Jeez.
instead that it's sold out in an hour. I think the wait list is like 140 people,
Oh my
and
gosh.
I think the reason is just the mental growth and experience that you get from that distance once you've had that. A lot of the people are people returning
Yeah.
that want to experience that again, or maybe a lot of the people who come out to pace and crew and volunteer and witness the event and witness and see what people are going through, then they want to jump in and do it the next year too, just because it really is a transformative experience that will just completely change your life. So
Yeah, it
it,
definitely sounds like it. Right on. Yeah, and so you're, you know, so far as your involvement in the Evolve Fitness group,
mm-hmm.
um,
Yes.
that helps keep you amped up and keeps you fit for this,
Yeah, I mean,
running these insane distances.
I absolutely believe that. I obviously strength train probably more than most runners do. A lot of runners shy away from doing strength training. Um, I had started my fitness journey at Evolve and my weight loss journey there, so I was already doing that first. So I kind of came to running from Evolve and not the other way around, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, but even that being said, I have kept going to Evolve at a really high rate because I really truly believe it makes me a stronger runner, a stronger person. Um, and I think it's actually specifically helpful for ultra running. We had a class earlier this week that was running 200 meters, no rest. You went straight into strength movements with a medicine ball. My heart was beating so hard. I was having these mental thoughts of like, how am I going to finish this? How am I going to do this? And it occurred to me, I'm like, this is literally how running an ultra marathon feels about halfway. Like, this is the feeling I got at Moab 240 at mile 120 when we didn't know if we were going to finish or not. We couldn't see how we were going to finish this race. And so to be able to go there mentally in a 30-minute workout helps prepare me for, mile 120, mile 80, without having to actually run 80 miles, which would be very taxing for my body. I can't do that every day. I can go to Evolve every day and get the mental training from it. And I also just believe in the power of lunging, squatting, using your body different. Runners are super prone to overuse injuries. If you think about it, running is the same movement over and over and over and over again, which is going to tax certain parts of your body more than others. So for me, I think going and jumping and, doing all these different movements, adding in weight, working the accessory muscles, working the core, that, Shane, I wish you could have seen it. But I had heard this, but I had never actually seen this, that the core muscles are often in ultra runners one of the things that kind of gives out first at the ultra distances. And we saw people in the second half of Moab that were leaned over. They were running, but they couldn't hold their body up straight anymore. Their core muscles couldn't support the body and the pack, because that's the thing too. You're carrying your own water. You're carrying, there's a whole list of things that we had to carry. We had to have a coat and pants and a bivy bag and 3 liters of water. I mean, my pack was 10 or 11 pounds. So that takes some core strength to wear that vest and carry it for 4 days. And we actually saw runners at the end that couldn't do it, and they were running and their core muscles had given out. We were still running upright, and I absolutely attribute Evolve and all of the strength training that I had done that keeps you strong full body versus just running. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, on my, of course, on my, just regular running around town here, and just shorter runs, I don't wear my, hydration pack,
Right.
and so it's not wearing on my back, but my lower back still hurts sometimes because as I'm running, find myself scrunched over forward, got a little humpback going on, and
Yeah.
one tip that I was given at a run clinic I was at, is to maintain your posture, keep your back straight. And
Yep.
one thing I have noticed, and I can speak from experience, is that so long as I'm keeping my back straight, my back doesn't seem to start hurting, and I can focus on my leg movement and
Yeah.
running properly, and it just feels a lot better, and my running improves
Yeah.
so
No.
much.
Yeah, running is truly a core exercise. When you're running, short distances, you don't really feel it. Maybe you're not aware of it. But when you go 100 miles, 200 miles day after day, that's when you really start to tap into, oh my gosh, you have to keep the body upright. Like you're saying, you want to keep a nice neutral alignment, a little bit of a forward lean, but from the ankle, not at the waist. So I just can't overemphasize for runners. People ask me, why do you strength train so much? Do you think that hurts your running? Do you think? And I really think it only adds. The other way I think it helped to train me is that I usually do evolve and run. Like you said, most days I'm doing both. And yes, that means that I am running fatigued all the time. I'm not running on fresh legs. But for ultra running, that's the reality of the race. In 100 or 200 miles, think of the tiny fraction of that you're going to feel fresh, maybe 20 miles. You still have 220 miles to go. So for me, running on fresh legs is almost meaningless. It doesn't really matter for the distances that I want to cover. What matters is, can I figure out how to run when my legs are tired, when my body's tired? So the other day when I did that 20 miles of running or 21 miles of running for 2021, I did it after Evolve. And we had done weighted lunges and jump squats and all these things. And I felt it right when I started running, like, oh man, my legs aren't fresh. My legs are fatigued. But then again, I'm like, exactly. That's the sport I'm in. That's the sport I love, is figuring out how to run, how to move when you're exhausted. And so I think Evolve has really helped, again, specifically train me for the ultra distances, because it gets me to that fatigue state without just purely running 50 miles to train leg fatigue, if that makes sense. I think that's something that Sam and I did really well preparing for Moab, was just a really high volume of activity in a fatigued state, because that's how most of the race will feel.
Yeah, I can definitely understand and vouch for that one. You know, it's
Yeah.
like you get so many miles out there, and it's like your mind's telling you, okay, we better shut down now. No more running, maybe. Maybe just call someone to come give us a ride to the finish line, and we can get
Yeah.
our car and go home. But it's like, nope, I'm in this now. I got to keep going.
Yeah.
So slow your pace, take a break, whatever you got to do, but just keep on moving.
Yeah. We both even came into Moab each with a little injury. And we would
Yeah,
kind of joke that we were, again, maybe you're mentally prepping yourself or pumping yourself up, but we're kind of happy we're starting a little injured, because then we never felt good. So you never have to lose that. You don't really have to descend from a good place to a hurting place. You just start off feeling a little beat up and proceed to get more beat up and
yeah,
keep moving.
right on. Yeah, I totally understand that. It's like not getting any worse, so what's the big deal? Let's just keep going.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing I try to tell people about ultra running too. I think people have this idea that it's this linear experience. Like, you start off feeling good, then you feel kind of bad, and then you feel worse, and then you finish, or not. But that's so not the truth. I'm sure you've experienced it. Ultra running is absolutely this strange mix of highs and lows. Like, you can feel, to me, the beginning actually in some ways always feels a little terrible because of how much is left. Mentally, sitting with and accepting how many miles are left and assessing your body. I remember being like at mile 17 and being like, oh, my calves are already hurting. Or I think I already had a blister at one of the aid stations, and the foot medic was like, oh my gosh, you're in big trouble here. The beginning is hard because of the weight of the miles left. But then next thing you know, at mile 80, you're feeling the best you've ever felt. Then at 120, maybe you're having a low, and your body feels so beat up that you don't know how you're going to go on. And then 5 miles later, you're running fast down a road. It's this strange mix of highs and lows. You don't know what's around the corner. You don't know which parts are going to feel good, which parts are going to feel hard. It's not even necessarily what you would predict you would feel. And it's just hanging in there for the next phase and realizing that none of these feelings last forever. It's going to change. If you're having a low moment, there'll be another high. If you're in a high moment, don't count on that, because it's probably not going to stay either, but just kind of rolling with the adventure of it as it all unfolds.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Just sort of an all-in-one experience. It's not necessarily, there's no steady vibe.
Yeah, it's not a steady decline. It's not like you start off feeling great and just keep feeling worse and worse. You will have different moments of feeling great and
Yeah,
feeling rough, and it's going to be all mixed in. And that it's possible to feel great at high mileage. Like I said, we finished running fast, feeling good, feeling so excited. It was like our pain had all, and some of that is probably endorphins, but the second half of the race, we actually felt better, moved better, ran better than the first. And you wouldn't expect that. If I had been taking how I felt at mile 80 and extrapolating out how bad I was going to feel at 240, I might have quit. I couldn't imagine that I might be running and feeling strong and excited at mile 236, running an 8-minute mile. Anything's possible in the course of that distance. So it's a neat thing to kind of experience and just learn from mentally, not to try to guess how you're going to feel or how it's going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know another thing I was wondering about you and Sam's experience out there running 240.3 miles over 4 days, and I'm just wondering um, how much, if I don't want to suppose that you did get any, but how much, if any, sleep did you get out there?
So that was one thing that we sometimes disagree with this within our own team. And I have insomnia. I have a hard time sleeping on the best of nights. Certainly in the middle of an ultra, I have a hard time sleeping, or I thought I might. Whereas Sam is someone who's been running for 15 years. He's done a lot more ultra marathons than me. And he has worked at 200s, and he's seen what happens to people when they don't sleep during these events, because actually the most dangerous thing probably is the sleep deprivation and the mental effects of that. You take some very, very sleep deprived people, put them out in the desert, you're wandering along like canyon walls and stuff. They've had people try to climb down them, things like that. You can actually truly do dangerous things from the sleep deprivation. So I deferred to him with our sleep plan, which was to sleep maybe sooner than we felt like we needed it, and to sleep a little more than we thought we would need, just to stay ahead of that and to make sure we didn't get into a dangerous place mentally. Yeah. And I ended up being really happy that we did that, because we ran into people and we weren't even sleeping that much. I would say over the course of 4.5 days, we slept. We took a few breaks that were like an hour and a half. So it's, I don't even know if I would call it sleep. I vividly remember one of the sleep breaks at mile 120. Sam told me he wasn't sure we were going to finish because we had been lost on Shea Mountain all night. We lost a bunch of time. We came in, we were starting to get kind of close to time cutoffs, which is very stressful. He said he wasn't sure if we were going to finish, and that just emotionally really hit me in that moment. We took a sleep break. My mom was there, and I just laid there. So even though it was a sleep break, I wasn't asleep, but I was just laying there, letting my body kind of decompress, mentally decompress. But all in all, over the course of 4.5 days, I would say we're talking less than 6 hours of sleep / laying / rest in the middle of a race. But I am glad that we did it, because we did run into some runners that had not slept. And we ran into one guy particularly coming into, I think it was around mile 180, and he had completely dissociated from himself, didn't know who he was, and didn't know why he was out in the desert. He just wandered up to us and was like, "Can you help me? I don't know what I'm doing out here. I have my phone. I tried calling the last number." And it was actually very scary to see somebody that had gotten into that mental state where he just had completely lost track of what he was doing and who he was. And so we took him with us to the next aid station, took him to the medic, which they actually see that a lot. They had him sleep, and then he went on to finish. So, the sleep deprivation is definitely something you're battling. Also, when you're sleep deprived, you start hallucinating. So the whole second half of the race, we were also hallucinating things when you're out on the course. And that's kind of what we used to dictate that we needed a sleep stop. If both of us were hallucinating and starting to have a hard time following the navigation on the phone, that's when we'd call it and say, "Hey, we need to sleep a little bit and get a fresher brain, and then we'll keep going." Yeah.
Right on. Well, right on. I guess I will be, I have you on social media, so I'll definitely be following your training leading up to and your experience at the Moab 240 this year.
Yes.
And Yeah, maybe I'll have to have you back on my show after that, so you can, tell about the second experience with that.
I know. I hope I finish. I hope I have a story to tell.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
there'll be a story either way.
yeah, definitely. I remember, um, I was recalling while you were talking. I was recalling the 100 mile race or run that you and Sam were doing up there into Halle and down to Puyallup and back up the hill.
Yes.
But
Yep.
and I started out that race or that run with you, and I ended up doing like 20 some miles and calling it quits. But um, glad I did too. I just could not
Yeah.
get
No, I'm
started.
so glad you joined us
Yeah,
on that. And that was before COVID and everything. That was us just, or mostly it was me. I really wanted to run 100 miles. I just had this goal and this dream. I was turning 35. I wanted to do it, or turning 36. I wanted to do it at 35.
yeah,
So we did it the week before my birthday. We just went out, ran 100 miles around the neighborhood, self supported. Um, and we ran most of that. Of any 100 or any distance I've ever done, we ran most of those miles. Just any little uphill we were walking, or big uphill. But it was neat to have you join us for some of that. And then it's been interesting to watch, all of running kind of go that way in the next year. People doing more virtual and, self accountable races and stuff like that. So
yeah,
that was we got started with that ahead of the curve.
yeah, yeah. Um, I've been thinking about that here recently about how, with COVID and social distancing, races, most, well, very few races actually happening, at least locally here.
Yeah.
That, and I've been thinking most of my training runs or daily runs anyway are on my own.
Hmm.
And unless I see someone out on the street, I'll say hi, maybe run with them for a little ways, and then, but most of it I'm on my own. And
Yep.
it's like that's that's where running's going for the most
I
part.
think it is. I think people are realizing too that it is kind of liberating. I love the races. I'm sure I'll always participate in some races, especially something like Moab 240. You do, it does help a lot to have aid stations, for that distance, because you do need to eat. You do need maybe a medic to check you. Um, but it's a little liberating to feel like if you want to do 50 miles, if you want to do 100, or another thing Sam and I did is we did a self-supported 100-mile loop around the Wonderland Trail around Mount Rainier. We just wanted to see it. Just people feeling empowered and liberated that you can go do this on your own, um, and just be self accountable. And in some ways, that's harder. In some ways, that means more because you don't have all of the external race organization and cheering and support that, to go out and just do it on your own. You grow a lot mentally, I think,
Yeah,
from that. And so it's been neat to see people doing that more and more.
right on. Yeah, and that's one thing I wanted to add to that was that it's been neat. It's neat just to see, you know, have the experience myself, but also see others such as you,
Yeah.
see Sam's experience out there and hear about his running stories from the past, and see other people get into running and discover that, you know, we, as people, humans, we are capable of a lot more than we think we
Yeah.
are. You
I
know,
absolutely believe that. I always say that I haven't even been running 3 years. And 3 years ago, I was more than 100 pounds heavier. I have three little kids. I've broken my left ankle twice. It's held together by a metal plate and six screws. I mean, I am not the person who you would have seen as an ultra runner. If you had seen me 3 years ago and you said, this person's going to run the Moab 240, everybody would have said, no way, including me. So, and this is a way that you really inspire me. If you put your mind to something, if you put your will to something, it's absolutely possible. And I really truly believe, I'm like, if I can do this, anybody can do this. I'm not built for it. It didn't come naturally. I had all the odds stacked against me. I've had to work hard, but that's all it takes, for ultra running, is just to keep showing up, keep working hard, and it's it, it's not beyond anyone's reach, if that makes sense.
yeah, Right on. All right. Well, I think that's a very good closing point. Is just, it's, whatever distance it's not, everything's within your reach if you want
Yeah,
it. And, that you are a lot more capable of, you're capable of a lot more than you think. And,
absolutely. Yes.
yeah. Well, we're getting to about that time where I got to wrap up, get ready for
Sounds
the next
good.
show.
Thank you for having me, Shane. I was so nervous to do this. I do not like public speaking. I do not like interviews, but I am a huge fan of yours and I wanted to get a chance to talk to you. So thank you for having me
Well,
on your show.
thank you very much. Um, and if people want to get a hold of you, is there a way? What's your? Uh,
Yeah, if people want to get a hold of me, I love to talk about weight loss, strength training, ultra running, any of it. My Instagram is random happy things, just all one word strung together, or just Jess Greene on Facebook.
okay, right
Yeah.
on,
Thank
right
you,
on.
Shane.
Yeah, and thank you very much again for being on my show, and I appreciate you and hearing all your stories about your running. Thank you very
Sounds
much,
good.
and you have a great day.
You
And
too. Bye, Shane.
bye bye, Jess. And to all the viewers and listeners out there listening to Positive Vibes, I just want to say stay kind, optimistic, and grateful, and have a phenomenal day and phenomenal week. And I'll catch you next Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific on VT Radio Universal. And I'm out.